Our joining us now to discuss is Brett Sifling. He's the director of Get Invested at wealth manager Gerber Kawasaki. Brett, oh my goodness, you are ready for Halloween, Brett. I love it. I love it. All right. So, all right. Bitcoin surging past that psychologically important $20,000 threshold. Yet we see that Bitcoin is less volatile than stocks these days. So what do you see on the horizon?
Crypto's been trading in a very, very tight range as investors are spooked really from macro headwinds ranging from the Fed to inflation and really just a lack of positive catalysts. So it's hard to imagine that this will resolve to the upside as investors do still have a really limited risk appetite just across the board in all markets.
All right. Maybe the markets are spooked, you're saying? All right, so what's the significance of Bitcoin volumes going up and altcoin volumes trailing?
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin has remained a leader in our mind. It's compared to a lot of these altcoins, it's a natural part of the business cycle too, right? We had so much froth in the last couple of years with so many projects popping up. We knew many of them would fail, but ultimately the blue chips, you could say, of the crypto world are continuing to gain market share. And that's exactly what you're saying with Bitcoin, as it's really the gold standard of the crypto world, along with, Ethereum, in our opinion.
Mm-hmm. And around the corner, we have the next Fed meeting and contending with a strong US dollar right now. So with those events happening, which could be potentially bearish for Bitcoin, what are you watching in particular?
Yeah, I think that a lot of investors are going to be watching the Fed meeting next week, as well as the inflation report that follows in the near future. And really, that's what the conversation of the town has been about. And with the Fed raising rates, it does make more conservative investments much, much more attractive. And that's a part of the reason why we've been seeing a lot of the speculation and liquidity sucked out of crypto markets and a lot of the risk on assets across the board, because investors are less willing to take on this risk as we kind of head into these uncertainty periods looking at next year and onward.
All right. And yet there are some silver linings. I'm just, looking through your notes. You're pretty bullish on this new UK Prime Minister coming into office, Rishi Sunak.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see some young people and governments around the world. He's been a big, crypto proponent for a little while now, pushing through regulation. It's interesting because in crypto, innovation has outpaced the legislation that's been put forward. And that oftentimes happens with new technologies. And we're a big proponent on increasing legislation around it, because ultimately that does bring certainty to investors. It brings accountability, which is really, really needed in the crypto world right now. And ultimately that protection that allows them to feel comfortable with these types of investments. So I think it's a great thing what he's doing. And ultimately, I hope he does run with it, and we'll see what they want to do with, stable coins and everything else.
And as a wealth advisor, what's the advice for clients who, are interested in Bitcoin right now and, want to wait for the bottom, et cetera, et cetera? What are you advising them on? Is it time to buy?
It's really hard to tell when markets are going to bottom, and we do believe in time in the market versus trying to time the market. And so using strategies like dollar cost averaging is super important during this time. You want to maintain an appropriate emergency fund, so if asset prices do go lower, you're not dipping into that at all. And I think that during these downtimes when things aren't so crazy, it's a really great time to look at security and how you're actually custodying your Bitcoin. And are you open to hacks or anything else that could, lose a large percentage of those assets? And so it's a really great time to take all of those things into consideration, get your feet wet, make sure that it's an appropriate allocation in your portfolio. But, dollar cost averaging is going to be your best friend during these volatile times.
All right. I love that you mentioned dollar cost averaging, because we have a whole segment on that next. All right. Thanks for setting us up, Brett, and happy Halloween. I was Gerber Kawasaki, director of Get Invested, Brett Sifling.